you are an entrepreneur, a professional, a speaker, or a coach, and although you've come a long way, it's time for you to take it to the next level. We've got you. This is the Author to Authority podcast. We'll help you use authority and influencer marketing to build your business stronger and faster by publishing a book. You'll hear from guests that are thought leaders in sales, marketing, networking, communication, social media, promotion, and business leadership. Let's do it. This is the Author to Authority podcast. And now your host, the extraordinary word ninja, Kim Thompson-Pinder.
Welcome to the Author to Authority podcast. And today, if you just took a quick look at the title, no, we are not talking about massage therapy. We are talking about message therapy. So if you have been looking at your messaging, how you introduce yourself, what do you say to people, and you think, it could really use some work. Well, then you are going to enjoy today's episode of the Author to Authority podcast. I want to welcome Hersh to the show. He is the message therapist. He's worked with startups and billion-dollar brands. He's worked with market leaders, fledgling filmmakers, Oscar winners, and it comes all down to this. All branding is personal. Many of his clients have been with him throughout their careers. He says, if you are a founder or CEO and you and I connect, my hope is to work with you long after our brains have been uploaded. Welcome to the show, Hersh.
Thank you, Kim. It's really good to be with you.
I'm excited for today's topic, and you and I actually met at PodFest 2023.
That's right. That's right. And yeah, we could go on and on about PodFest. That's a great event.
Well, I highly recommend, audience, if you are a podcast host or you're looking to guest on podcasts, PodFest every year is the place to be. And it's usually in Florida in winter. So if you're like a Canadian like me and thinking, sunshine and warmth, well, then you are going to want to check it out. Just Google PodFest and there'll be lots of information there for you. But I want to just start with just sort of an obvious question for you, Hersh, because many times, as entrepreneurs and, experts and professionals and speakers and all that, we don't take the time for some of the basics. So how important is messaging to being seen as that go-to person?
It is, in my opinion, Kim, the most important thing because it comes first. It's before you really get to know anyone. It's before they even know who you are. So in other words, the messaging that precedes you is super important. So I don't know if there's a way to go without it. In other words, you could do you have other things like search engine optimization and outreach and appointments and the product you sell and all the stuff that you do. But the first step is knowing yourself and branding yourself based on that. And so I think it's super important. And if you notice how sometimes I got into this very, very early in my whole career, but I realized over the last several years that branding myself was so important because you meet so many people, you're on a lot of shows, you do all this stuff, and people say, who are you and what do you do? And if it takes more than 20 seconds, I think you may need some message therapy.
What you just said there, you only have those first few seconds to make that impression. And, especially like if you're at a networking meeting and you get up on that stage or the front of the front of that room, and you've got 30 to 60 seconds, people will judge you by the impression that you make. So if you get up there and you kind of go, well, hi, my name's Kim. And yeah, like I've been married like a really long time, like 32 years, and you're rubbing your nose and, things like that.
Well, you remember, have you ever had someone, describe a movie to you, right? I used to have a friend a friend of mine, and he would say, "Oh, you got to see this movie. It starts at a convenience store. There's two guys, they're sitting in a convenience store. Then one guy says this, and he just literally goes through every scene in the movie. And I'm like, well, I guess I don't have to see that movie. You've told me every single thing that happens, and so and now I think post COVID, everybody has taken shifts in their careers. They took on new skills. And so we don't even know where to begin.
True, true. And I think, you talk about, branding being that initial thing that people see about you. And, when we're, in our entrepreneurship journey, we're wearing so many hats. And sometimes we forget about some of the foundational pieces that, just help us to build our business bigger, better, stronger, and faster. And personal branding, your messaging, your introduction, how you look on social media, like they all need to be unified so that no matter where somebody finds you, it's always the same. And
Yeah.
that helps to make you memorable. There's a very important reason why I call myself the extraordinary word ninja. You want to hear what it is?
Yes, please.
People will not remember my name, but they'll look at me and they'll say, "Oh, aren't you that word ninja person?" And that's exactly what I want.
Yeah, and it's very impressionable. I remembered it, and the thing is, again, with all the platforms we have, we are exposed to so many more people than we might used to have been in another age. And so the idea of someone having a name similar to yours is, very realistic. You go on LinkedIn, you type in somebody's name, right? And you may get, Hersh, granted, it's a pretty unusual name, but the flip side of that is that the last name Rephun is very hard to pronounce. People don't always remember it. So, it's good to have something that grabs people's attention, and all the better if it's somehow related to what you do. And so I think that's and sometimes people will come to me just for that. They're just, I want to be the blank, blank, blank person, I struggle with that sentence. I help people do this. Those sentences are very useful, but we tune out to the familiar. We kind of, oh, I help people, so so we have to, so saying I'm the extraordinary word ninja, you're it, right?
So I just have to ask you this question because you were talking and it just came to me. So do people like look at your title, read it wrong, and think you're a massage therapist?
All the time. But the interesting thing is, like, for a while I put in parentheses, yes, you read that right, because people would then go back and look at it. And what I've realized is, at first I thought, oh, should I use it? People love it, but everybody sees massage therapist. Then I realized, no, I'm actually blessed with people looking at it a second time. So the first time they see it, they may see massage therapist, but they are going to look at it again for whatever reason. They're going to say, did I read that right? Did I see that? Oh, that's interesting. He's a massage therapist. So many people, at least once a day, two people will say, oh, well, when I first saw it, I thought it said massage therapist. But they'll know because they're going to look at the other information, right? And if they do need a massage, okay, so they need a massage, there's plenty of good massage therapists I can recommend. But I think that knowing that it's about message is what makes it so much fun, because that's exactly what it's about, is how do you make that impression?
It's funny you said that because I was, we had met again at a networking group online. We talked about you being on the show. That was a few weeks ago. My brain has been in 60 million places since then. My, podcast assistants go, well, what's the title of today's episode? I'm like, good question.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel you.
And I looked at it and I went, oh, massage therapist. Wait, he's not a massage therapist. And then I had to go back because I was reading it really fast, right? Like I was just trying to get get something to give to her, right? And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, he's not a massage therapist, he's a message therapist. And I thought, man, that's brilliant.
Thank you. Well, it also speaks to the humor. I tell people that in order to really brand themselves, they have to have a degree of humor and humanity. It's not enough
Yes.
to just be funny. If you're just funny, then that's all you're bringing to it. But if the humor is a door to your humanity, because how do we break the ice with people? We make a joke. How do we make them feel comfortable? We laugh at ourselves. It's all that role that humor plays
Mm,
is important. And what I try to do is I have an ear for people's what I believe is or people's brand voice. This,
mm,
I hear in their talking about themselves, I hear who they really are, and that's where
yes.
that message therapy was really born. Was that I'm a listener. I sit there across from them and I really process their story and who they are, and I say, you know what? This could be something we should talk
Yes.
about.
Well, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back because I want to give Hersh some time to talk about, message therapy, right?
Yeah.
And so, audience, if you're here and you're listening, still at this point, check out this free resource that RTI Publishing has for you today.
Writing and publishing a book that converts readers into client and scales your business is hard, but it doesn't have to be. Get my free checklist at bit.ly/create and scale that will show you what you need to do to have your book become a well-converting lead generating tool.
Welcome back. Hersh, I've just been so enjoying this conversation. I want to let you loose because we were talking just before we came on camera, first of all, about the importance of messaging. But one of the initial things is the introduction. And I know that that's something that's part of your heart and your passion is helping people with those introductions. So I'm going to let you loose for a few minutes to talk about introductions and how do you make them memorable?
Thanks, Kim. And here's how I approach it. What I have found is that we tend to build up to the point, right? The expression "get to the point" doesn't come from nowhere, And what happens a lot of the time is we almost feel like we're going to prepare people for who we are. And so we start to tell a story, or we start to talk about, like I use the analogy of the movie, we start to talk about how things unfold. If you, as an exercise, and what I would say to your listeners is, as an exercise, if you have a bio or a profile or anything, just as a test, read it and see what the first line is and the last line. And I'm almost certain that the last line will be very personal, very meaningful, sum up probably who you are. And it just might be that should be the first line, not the last line,
Mm,
because as we all know, people are not always going to get to that last line anyway.
yes.
So, you could say, and let's say that someone, works with developmentally disabled children, and children that have specific challenges. So they might start out their introduction with, I have a degree in this and I have a degree in that, and I work on this and I work at this school and I've worked in this system. And the reason I do all this stuff is because when I was 5 years old, my parents adopted a foster child, and he had all of these issues, and I became extremely attached to him because we were very close in age. What if you started that
Yes.
bio with, my brother came to our family when I was 5 years old and he had these challenges? Everybody would be really completely gripped by that. And it would be unlike any other story that anyone else has, which is my other belief, that all branding is personal, and that there is no one with your story. No two stories are
That's right.
exactly right. We talk about diversity and inclusion, and at the same time, we have to open our minds even further to say, well, no two people are alike. Not only should we be open to all people's stories, we should be open to the idea that no two stories are alike, even if we have similar backgrounds, even if we have similar experiences. we're jigsaw puzzles. We have a lot of different pieces. We're like that. It's not even the Rubik's cube. It's like those puzzle where you move the little pieces and try to line them up. Very similar, and it never works. it never lines up because there are so many pieces. So that's the little test would be: look at your bio, look at your profile, and find the most unique, most important part, not the part that you feel is supposed to be there. The part that the individual spark that really sets you apart from anybody else, and lead with that.
Unfortunately, people don't care that you went to such and such school and you had such and such a position. And basically, they want to know a few things. First of all, they want to know if you can answer their question and
Right.
solve their problem. Secondly, they want to know if they can trust you to do that.
Yeah.
And I think story is, where it becomes powerful. And like you said, everyone's story is unique. And so that's how you stand out. You want your unique selling position? Tell your story. Make it a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. And the education, the accolades, awards you may have won, all those things are valuable. But what I feel is they support what you're saying about yourself. So that if that person tells a story about their brother and why they got into the work they do, then it says, by the way, I went to this school, I studied this, that, I have a degree in that, I hold this. I always have a paragraph in people's bios or mission statement that backs up those facts. I'm a big proponent of selling the truth. I call it, you have the reality that you are living, but how you present it to people is up to you.
Well, and like you said, it has a place. It just shouldn't be front and center. Like you said, it's the proof. It's the proof of who you say you are. But you have to make them believe in you first. And so, those other things come first. One of the things, well, basically, I have one story with 2 or 3 versions, depending on who I'm talking to.
Mhm.
And, my story is called The Power of Words. And it's how I went from being told at 7 years old that I shouldn't write because I wasn't a good writer to becoming a publisher. And so there's some different versions to that. I have a version for when I'm talking more to people who are going to be writing their first books. I have a version for people who are entrepreneurs. And, part of my story is there was a period of time that I felt invisible, right?
Yeah.
So there's different elements in it. But one thing I was thinking about when you were talking is the fact that your introduction has to be crafted. It's not something that you just slap together.
Right.
And it's not something that you just, put a little bit of thought into and just, I've had several iterations of my introduction over the years, and it keeps changing as I grow and learn and change.
Yeah. And as it should. And the fact that you allow your mind to adapt and grow, that's our natural state. It's not our natural state to stop learning. It's not our natural state to stop evolving. We have to have a mindset that allows for that. And as far as the preparation goes, my belief about rules is that you can break the rules when you know what the rules are. So if you've learned what to say about yourself and you know yourself so well, and the idea I'm going to wing it is only good once you've done that script a million times and you've said it the right way and you know it inside and out. I learned that as a comedian, as an improviser. Once you learn all those things, then you can go out on a limb and say, I'm gonna do it without a script or without the words. I'm gonna just let it flow. You know it so well that you can play with it, but you can't play with it until you know it.
Yeah. And sometimes once you know it really well, that's where you can test different versions of it to see, which one is responding the best, but you have to know it first. And so what would be, let's say you've got 30 seconds to give this introduction. What would be some of the key things that you would want to see covered in that 30 seconds?
That's a really good question, because the putting them all into, a lot of people go over, by the way, let's say they have 30 seconds. They go over because they think they got to cram all these things into it. Going back to your last statement about preparation and what we just talked about, if you have three things in there, if you have these three things, you probably won't go wrong in your 30 seconds. The first thing is, what is most unique about you? The second thing is, what problem do you solve for people? And the third thing is how those people can find you. There really isn't that much more to say. So if you had those three senses, now you may think, oh, but isn't it important that I went to Yale? Or isn't it important that, well, maybe it is, right? Maybe it is. Maybe the education in your case, you're an actor, you went to the Yale School of Drama. If I were an actor and went to the Yale School of Drama, I would include that, but I wouldn't lead with it. I would lead with, I whatever whatever that inspiration was that got me into acting. My dad was a con man and used to take me on his cons, and kind of like in Paper Moon. And he used to make me do these, we could pretend to be, Italian one day and British the next day. And that's why I ended up becoming an actor. Well, that's unique to me. That would be really fascinating if someone said that to me. But I ended up at the Yale School of Drama, and who knew? Okay, now you got that part in. And if you go to, budstevens.com, you could see all the different characters I did. There you go. Boom. 30 seconds less, but you have a completely unique person.
Mm. We're going to shift gears for a few minutes, Hersh, because I want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about your story, because I don't think I've even heard your story yet. Some people, I know the story before they come on the show. So take maybe about 5 minutes and just, explain how you got into all of this.
Yeah, thank you. Well, my story is not exactly what I said about Buddy, about that character. My dad was actually an attorney. My mom was a medical assistant in a doctor's office. And what I learned from watching them was this kind of sincerity, this integrity, and not kind of BSing about yourself. So I never saw them present themselves as anything other than who they were. And I think that was a kind of an absorbed lesson for me. So I knew very early the difference between acting and, communicating. And I made a decision at about my early 20s, made a decision that I could go either the acting route or I could go into advertising. And I went into the advertising industry. And from there, I was opened up to a whole world of something called commercial production, just making commercials. And I ended up, and I say ended up because I did not intend on this, but I ended up working as a rep for directors of TV commercials. And what was fascinating about it was that, if I would have gone to work in an agency, talent agency, I was living in New York. If I had gone to work in a New York City talent agency, I would probably never get anywhere near the talent because it's so saturated. But in this world, I could be on set with directors of the TV commercials, and they would actually talk to me and were actually interested in what I thought about their work, about guidance. And I started writing their bios and doing articles about them, which at the time there were no real publicists in the commercial production world. So I kind of am the OG guy that started doing publicity for directors of TV commercials, and then editors of TV commercials, and composers of TV commercials, and getting that hands-on one-on-one experience at a young age was very good for me. I still did stand-up comedy. I still acted in some things when I was younger. I think that improved my presentation skills and my communication skills. But I wanted to merge those worlds more. How do you merge creativity and reality? And it wasn't just writing ads, although I did do some of that as well. But as we were talking about in the beginning, before I learned, or before it dawned on me that I am a message therapist and that everything kind of falls under that umbrella, someone might ask me who I am, and I might start with, oh, I do stand-up comedy. Oh, I write ads. I do PR for directors. You know, a lot of us, those of us that do not go into a corporate structure have, and even some of us who do, who have lives outside of the corporate structure, have a hard time with all of those different things. And that's what I struggled with for a long time, because I was a multi-hyphenate. Multi-hyphenate is great if you're a writer director, or an author speaker, or a founder CEO. Those are good
Good combinations.
complementary roles, right? But what if you do landscaping, and you do art, and you do finance, and you do all these different things? Well, that's where the message therapy became, for me, therapeutic.
Yes.
The idea that is first and foremost what I do, because copywriter wasn't really it. Publicist wasn't limited to that. Acting was something I did as an avocation, really. Stand-up comedy was a period of my life where I studied stand-up comedy so that I could get really good at it, so that I could be a good public speaker. So I think that kind of covers it. And hopefully in a way that helps the audience also understand what I do, and how they can help themselves communicate who they are.
It is true, because we are so many different things. And, one of the things that I talk about sometimes is sometimes it's really hard to connect all of those things together. Like, I'm very creative. Like, I'm crafty. I love doing crafts. I'm actually, creating patterns for knitting and crocheting right now. And I have a Cricut machine. I create designs for that. And that's kind of a separate thing. But, I talk sometimes about having that business persona, and how do you represent yourself professionally? Yes, you may have all these other things, but I think sometimes they just don't go together. Like, there's two halves of you, sort of, and you have to have that professional side of you, and that's the side that you present publicly. And yeah, I'm a crafter, and people know that, and I talk about it every once in a while. But when I'm talking professionally, I'm, the extraordinary word ninja, the CEO of RTI Publishing. That's my, professional persona. And I think it's important that, you have that as well, because sometimes you can't just put them all together. But we're going to shift gears, because I think you and I could talk about that one for a really long time.
That's a rich one.
And we've only got a few minutes left. You told me you were working on a book. So I would love for you to share, what is the book that you're working on, and kind of where you're at in the process.
Thank you for bringing that up, Kim. So the book is called Selling the Truth. So it's what I call a semoir. It's like a semi-memoir with useful tips for life and business, because I haven't in my own life experienced a work situation that was so separate from my life and life's pursuits and passions that they weren't connected. And so in my life, the things that I've experienced have always influenced and been influenced by my work journey. And so this book is for people that are trying to inject or extract meaning from everything they do in one way or another. And there's a chapter in the book where I say, you are a legacy brand, meaning, legacy brand for let's say the footwear industry, which I've had clients in the footwear industry for many years. A legacy brand like Nike, Converse, there's a big long story behind those brands. But every person is a legacy brand, because otherwise what are we doing it for, right? If we don't want it to be impactful, it doesn't have to be that we want a building named after us, but if we want the impact to exist, then we have to consider our brand and how we talk about ourselves, and what do people say about us? What's our reputation for? What is it that we're, contributing? And so the book really guides the reader through a career and the steps they can take to focus on the things that matter.
Love it. Love it. Okay, there's a question that I ask everyone who's either an author or working on their book. And so, what has been the good, the bad, and the ugly so far of where you're at in your publishing journey?
The good, you obviously know a lot about publishing because that is definitely true. The good is that the story that I wanted to tell finally came together. I don't think I knew until I started writing a book that I had that book in me. And it's a real joy to know that I had that book in me. It's in the line editing phase right now, where the external line editors are picking it apart little by piece by piece to make sure everything's in order. But I can look at the book, the book's written, and that's a very satisfying accomplishment. The bad would be the time that it can take, the fact that there's a lot of pieces, and yes, books can be churned out very quickly, but a really great book, and if you want it to be a really great book, I think it's going to take a little bit of time, and that can be a bad part. And the ugly of it, I think, is the fear that will it be read? I'm fortunate to have a publisher, Leadership Books, that's publishing the book, but I don't know for a fact how will it be received, how many people will read it, will it have an impact as I hope it will. And I think that's the ugly, is kind of the unknown, because I'm a first-time author. I've written in every other medium, I think, but I'm a first-time author.
Thank you for being so honest, Hersh. I think that's encouraging to many people to know that, for all of us, everyday people, right? I'm a publisher, but I'm still an everyday person. And when I write my books, I go through the same things that all of you do. I just go through it quicker because I've done it enough times.
Exactly.
Right? Those feelings, those emotions, those doubts, we all have them. Wow, we've only got like a minute or two left, so I got to start tying this up, Hersh. I would love to talk to you longer about all of this stuff.
Thank you.
Two things, a final thought from you, and then if people have enjoyed this and they're like, wow, I really need help with my messaging, how can they connect with you?
A final thought would be something that occurred to me this week. So it's not anything I ever said on any, it's not my standby line that I say. But it occurred to me that as I was talking about the legacy brand idea, is that your legacy is not a luxury, meaning being remembered, quote unquote, or impactful, or whatever it is. Yes, there's ego involved in all of that stuff. But the fact is, all this time that we spend, and ultimately it's a very short time, all this time that we spend on this earth doing whatever we're doing is going to amount to something, whether we intend it to or not. So we might as well control that narrative in the best possible way and communicate who we are and why we're here. So that's the thought. People can get a hold of me at getmessagetherapy.com. Getmessagetherapy.com is where they can find me. And one of the first things they'll see is where they could sign up for my newsletter to keep them posted on the book, because people who sign up early will get some extras and some fun things that come with the book. And they can also book appointments with me and talk about their message and talk about how I can help them.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Hersh, for being on the show today. It's been a joy and a pleasure. And just thank you. I really enjoyed when we met at Podfest. We spent, I think, about an hour or so one day just talking, and then we lost track of each other, and all of a sudden we're on an online networking meeting together, and I'm like, I gotta have Hersh on the show. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Kim, and I feel likewise, and I'm so grateful that you brought it up and that we actually sat down to do this. It's wonderful.
Audience, if you're still here, which I hope you are, but if you're still here and you want to know where to go next, I want to direct you back to episode 487, The Hidden Secrets of Language. If you are on YouTube, you know the routine. My daughter has placed the thumbnail somewhere here on the screen for you to click. If you're on your favorite podcast app, You're going to be scanning back about 20-ish episodes to find the hidden secrets of language with Steve Lowell. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you on the very next episode. Bye now.
You've been listening to the Author to Authority podcast. The extraordinary word ninja, Kim Thompson Pinder, has helped over 200 entrepreneurs, professionals, speakers, and coaches write and publish their books that have become incredible marketing tools for their business. And many of those have gone on to become Amazon best-selling authors and have used their books to land high-level clients and get on big stages. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit the website at www.authortoauthoritypodcast.com. See you next time.